On Network Africa today, lawmakers in Burundi vote for the country to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. Eight people die in a blast in Muna Garage, Maiduguri, Borno State. Plus, fistula patients in Zimbabwe get some help from the World Food Programme. Let's begin Network Africa. Welcome, everyone. I am Amarachi Ubani. Let's begin the program in Burundi, where lawmakers have given their backing to a decision by the government to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. The MPs are voting 6 months after the court's prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda, said she would investigate violence in the country. More than 400 people have been killed since unrest erupted after President Pierre Nkurunziza said he would be running for a third term in April last year. Some normalcy is returning to Ethiopia's Romeo region following violent protests in the past couple of weeks. The government has been meeting with owners of some of the businesses destroyed during the protests to talk about a comeback. The government is also promising to do all it can to keep investors and their investments safe, and is considering paying compensation to convince them not to leave. While a state of emergency still exists, troublemakers are being arrested to ensure the peace lasts. Now, the US, on the other hand, is warning the Ethiopian government that a state of emergency imposed would only lead to more dissent. US State Department spokesperson John Kirby says the government needs to clarify how a state of emergency will be implemented, and is concerned it could be an excuse for more detentions without warrants, limitations on free speech, prohibitions on public gatherings, and the imposition of curfews. He says all of these, in the guise of imposing a state of emergency, would only worsen the situation. The US would rather the Ethiopian government address issues raised by the protesters, such as land rights and electoral reforms. Let's come back home now. Up north, security operatives today stopped a procession by members of the Islamic movement in Nigeria known as Shiites. The Kaduna State government last week described the group as an illegal association and banned it from operating in the state. Members of the group have ignored the ban and this morning attempted a procession marking the annual Ashura festival in remembrance of the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad, Imam Hussein. The police is, however, not leaving anything to chance. Spokesperson for the State Police Command, Aliyu Usman, said after the incident this morning, security operatives have been stationed around the area and other flashpoints to maintain law and order. Meanwhile, a blast in a satellite community in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, has left 8 people dead. The incident happened at a park in Muna, a satellite town. 8 people, including the suicide bomber who reportedly joined a cab where she detonated the bomb, killing herself, and 4 other people in the car, occurred. The Public Relations Officer of the National Emergency Management Agency in Borno State, Sani Dati, said 15 people were injured and have been sent to hospital. Well, Channels TV's correspondent in Borno State, Blessing Tuno, joins us now with more on this. Blessing, I'm glad you could join us. I'm glad you're safe. Now, how serious was this blast, and are authorities still sticking with the number of casualties?
Well, the blast is a very serious one, even though the number of casualties is 5, but then it could have been more because the suicide bomber actually targeted the travelers on the convoy heading to Gamborungala. There cannot be less than 300 vehicles on that convoy, and the military and other security operatives were there to escort them, because the route just got open last July, and the military are still they still have to escort travelers in a convoy to ensure to guarantee their safety. So what we saw today is the suicide bomb actually targeted the travelers, and the casualties could have been more, but they ended up just killing the occupants of the taxi she boarded. And when we went there, the tension was very, people there were terrified, and the area was cordoned off. But before we left there, we saw the security, they cleared the road, and then the traffic carried on with their journey.
Well, now we know the story behind the blast, a suicide bomber attempting to kill more people than intended. Apart from cordoning off the area, are things back to normal in Muna?
Yes, things, as at the time we left there, things were not really back to normal because people, they were actually terrified. They were not expecting that kind of thing. They were terrified. And, there's an IDP camp, an unofficial IDP camp, just close to the area where the blast happened. And we understand there are about 16,000 IDPs in the camp. So, you can understand how terrified everyone was around there. But then civilian GTF have beefed up security around there, doing their own community efforts and trying to screen everyone that comes around. And that's the mood in Muna Garage right about now.
Blessing, before this attack today, had there been any isolated attacks near Muna or around any of the other towns close to this town?
Yeah, sometime last year there was an attack around that axis too. That one was also in an IDP settlement like that, but it's really been long. And then within Maiduguri, the last time experienced an attack was when, that should be around June or so, when the civil servants.
Well, Blessing, I'm so glad you could join us, and I'm glad that you're safe. But what about the state governments, the Borno state government? Have there been any statements released by the government concerning what has happened and what going forward, how security would look like, especially around this area where you say there is an unofficial IDP camp? We do apologize, seem to have lost Blessing there somewhere in the mix of the network. Blessing to our correspondent in Borno State. And the UN Security Council is warning the Democratic Republic of Congo is at extreme risk of descending into widespread violence. UN envoy Maman Sidiko says this is based on recent threats received by the 18,000-strong UN peacekeeping mission in the country who have been stripped of their capabilities. There have been violent protests in the country ever since the Electoral Commission announced a postponement of presidential elections due to taking place this December. Dozens of people have died, especially in the capital, Kinshasa. The VOA's William Klaus joins us from the capital, Kinshasa, with more on this. William, I'm glad you could join us on Network Africa.
Thank you.
What's the true picture of what's going on in the country right now?
Well, in terms of like disorder and protests, it's been pretty quiet since the afternoon of the 20th of December. But there's been an awful lot going on. Many of the people arrested during those protests have already been tried. I think more than 150 people have already been in prison for crimes such as looting. Some of them for up to 25 years, and people involved in defending them have said that all sorts of human rights have been violated doing that. There's also a number of political battles going on. The governor of Kinshasa has banned political activities in the city, and there's also a list of senior politicians involved in the organizing of the protests who the Attorney General says should be arrested.
Are there still security forces on the streets as we speak?
There's as many as there were in the immediate aftermath of the protests on the 19th and 20th of December, but there are still some, and a report released yesterday, which is the Interior Minister's final report into the events of the 19th and 20th of December, did promise an intensification of patrols by security forces on the streets in the coming months.
And there haven't been any more violent protests after the clampdown on the demonstrations a few weeks ago?
No, but there is one planned for the 19th of October by the same political coalition that organised the last one, and there is a possibility of a more impromptu kind of protest tomorrow if an ultimatum for the government to free a senior politician who was arrested on Sunday night when he tried to fly to Belgium is not met. If this ultimatum is not met and this politician is not freed, the political party to which he belongs, the UDPS, say they will protest. And given that political activity is currently banned, it is possible that it might be dispersed violently.
William, the UN Security Council is warning that the DRC is at extreme risk of descending into widespread violence. From what you have seen, is it possible? Does it look like they're actually heading towards that direction?
I think it is possible, because at the same time, people are struggling with economic difficulties as well. They've lost a lot of their purchasing power in the last year because their local currency has depreciated. This is a very, very big country and a very, very poorly connected country, so it doesn't always follow that protests in one city spread to other cities. But, with social media and pictures and stories of protests and police brutality do spread a lot quicker than they used to. And if events like the 19th and 20th of December do recur, perhaps monthly in Kinshasa, with fatalities each time, it is plausible that the government could face a sustained period of chaotic disorder in Kinshasa, not just 36 hours like we saw the other day, which could potentially spread to other big cities like Lubumbashi, like Goma, like Kisangani. And if the security forces respond with similar heavy-handedness in these cities, then it's perfectly possible that we could see a serious disintegration of public order in the country.
William Krause with the VOA. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa. We're back home here, of course, in Nigeria. The Cuban government has agreed to provide organic vaccines needed by Nigeria to fight killer diseases. The ambassador, who visited Nasarawa State Governor Tanko Almakura, told journalists that his country is ready to provide the vaccines, where therefore ailments such as cancer, Lassa fever, malaria, diabetes, and others.
The Cuban ambassador did not come alone to the government house. He is accompanied by his deputy and wife to the council chambers. The delegation is helping out in the areas of cancer, Lassa fever, malaria, diabetes, and others.
We don't have malaria in my country since 1967. And we have plenty of mosquitoes. Plenty, as much as you have. Too much mosquitoes in Cuba. We don't have Lassa fever in Cuba. We don't have leptospirosis because we produce the drugs for that, which are organic and friendly to the people and cattle and the environment. We are ready to license that to be produced either in this state or anywhere in Nigeria.
Happy with the development, the governor congratulates Cuba for the renewed ties between them and the United States of America, which he believes will promote world peace.
I would like to make a proposal that, given your expertise in the health sector, we will be most obliged that we interface with you with regard to finding ways and means of creating a diagnostic research laboratory. I'm making this very special request for obvious reasons, especially when it deals with communicable diseases that are dangerous.
The new partnership between the Cuban and Nasarawa state government is expected to mature and bring about an enduring legacy resulting from a beneficial relationship.
When we come back after the break on Network Africa, jitters among South Africa's economists as Pravin Gordhan, the Minister of Finance, gets set to face fraud charges. Please stay with us.